Thank you, Sandy, and good afternoon. My name's Ian Wright, and I lead the Infrastructure and Operations organization for Pearson School and Clinical Assessment. We've been a customer of AWS now for about 7 years. We started off, as most did, with a very instance-centric approach, using a lot of homegrown tooling. So we used customized, home-built instantiation engines to describe the infrastructure. Very heavy chef. In fact, a lot of our DevOps engineers spent their days with their heads buried in chef cookbooks, something I'm sure they look back fondly on. And over the last 3 years, we've been moving to more of a mutable infrastructure, so utilizing Terraform, Docker, ECS, Ansible. We're a heavy user of RDS, in particular, Aurora, RDS Aurora. And today, though, we're going to talk a little bit about a product that came to us about 2 or 3 years ago, called Schoolnet. Some of you may have heard of Schoolnet. It is a classroom assessment product. It combines classroom assessment with instructional management as well as reporting. It's used by about 190 different customers, different states and districts in the US. And then we have some international customers, some large usage out in India and other areas. Schoolnet was built on a Microsoft stack. And so this was the first Microsoft stack my teams had actually seen, a big stack. And it was hosted in a traditional data center, in fact, two. We had a production data center and a second data center for disaster recovery. A big waste of infrastructure sitting there waiting for something to fail from the production data center. And so a lot of overhead and a lot of complexity with the operational side as well. So we formed an SRE team specifically focused around Schoolnet and decided to start the AWS journey and try and align Schoolnet with our standard operating model and get it migrated into AWS. We started that journey by initially migrating the disaster recovery target to AWS, and we actually asked two of our big state customers to run a live DR test with us. They did that, and it's actually part of the contract we have with these states, and they didn't want to go back. They asked if they could stay on the Amazon infrastructure and not go back to the data center. We weren't quite ready, and so we had to disappoint them and have them continue using the data center infrastructure until we were ready to go production in AWS. So this year, we went live with Schoolnet in AWS. Our SRE team, big hats off to John, Win, and Michael, who have worked numerous hours this year to migrate that application out into AWS. And the customers are ecstatic. Just to give you an idea of the volumes we're talking about with just Schoolnet, we service millions of students across the US and globally. Millions upon millions of online tests generated each year, and tens of thousands of educators are served by this product. The teachers also have the ability to create their own tests within their classroom, so they can send out a quick Quizlet to their students, get instant results from the students within the classroom. And we saw a 55 to 70% reduction in those processing times for these tests as we migrated Schoolnet to AWS. Blazing response times, that's not my word, that was the feedback we received from each and every customer that came over. As each customer went live, we just received a tremendous amount of feedback about how fast, this product is 20 years old. It was developed in the late 90s, and it's running like a brand new Ferrari, I think was actually one of the quotes we got. So what else did we see? Few things that we did along the way here. So we were able to implement automated deployments, reduce our infrastructure costs. That was a big one. And so a lot of people ask me, well, Microsoft's very expensive to host in AWS. Not the case here. We were actually able to reduce our costs by about 30% from what we were paying on the data center side. Cost and licensing, I'll talk to in just a minute. High availability, so rather than have that traditional DR type of approach, we have gone active-active across the AZs on the East Coast, so the East region. And we also have cross-site replication for any regional type failures. Automated patching and compliance, something else we were able to get in there. Automated configuration management, improved scalability and stability. We have had, and I need to find some wood to knock on somewhere. No, it's plastic. 100% uptime since we went live in AWS. I hope I didn't just jinx something there, but the uptime has been phenomenal, and the customers have most definitely appreciated that as well. SOC 2 audits, a big one for us, so we have to satisfy SOC 2 audit compliance across all of the different assessment products that we support. And doing that in a traditional data center, anyone that's done that and had to go through that entire process, certifying all of your physical controls, the facility side and everything else, it's an absolute nightmare. Having Amazon in that shared responsibility type model take care of all the physical components and just focusing on the hosting and the controls and so forth around that has made that far, far easier. And in fact, Schoolnet is currently going through its first SOC 2 audit. Multiple regions. We do have Schoolnet deployed across 3 different regions. And so we do, as I mentioned, service India with Schoolnet. We also have customers going live in Brazil and South Africa. And on to the last slide. Oh, no, that's the one before last. So twice as fast from a response perspective. There's the red Ferrari. And 30% on the cost saving side. License management. So when we came to the end of the migration, that picture actually resonated with me because our corporate folks came to us and said, well, what are you doing about license compliance? We've got a true up coming up, and not just on the Microsoft side, but also on the Oracle side. And so I turned to our AWS exec account rep, Eric Thielen, who's been awesome throughout this migration, working with our teams, and asked him, I said, do you guys have anything we can use for license compliance, for tracking, finding out what we have in our estate? He said, well, it just so happens we have this new product coming out, and would you like a private preview of it? Well, sure, yeah, we'll take a private preview. And so we did, and it couldn't be any easier to use. They plugged it into the account we asked them to plug it into, and it was literally plug and play. And we were able to see license consumption, very, very intuitive. Not to mention the fact that we were able to also use that on the Oracle side. So we were looking at a lot of the Oracle licensing as we have another true up coming with Oracle next year. So great product from what we've seen so far, and looking forward to getting more exposure into that. And I think the best news about it is it's totally free. I don't think there's any charge behind it at all. So, and that's the story. So thank you.